What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So I don't know if you remember, but last time we did a segment like this, which happened to also be snowing, gave you guys all the possible things that could go wrong with your 4Runner within your first 150,000 miles. These are all known issues of cars I had worked with in the business. It's really coming down. But I felt like we left a lot of meat in the bone. So today, what I am going to do is going to give you my complete service records on my car, everything I've done, and how I do things. So hopefully it won't be too boring. I'll throw some numbers at you guys. I guarantee you, stick around, you will learn something today. And yeah, like always, if you have different opinions as far as maintenance goes, drop us a message. But in the meantime, let's look back in time. It'll come as a shocking surprise to some, but I'm actually a Honda guy as well. Here's my 6-speed manual TL, the day I traded it in. Just me, or this just puts a smile on my face. That's gorgeous. What a way to start the day, man. Wow, that's amazing. All right, guys, so let's get right to it. What I did to make things a lot easier to follow along on this, it does look like a lot, right? That's because it is. So I broke it down in 4 categories, and this should make things a lot easier to follow along. So first and foremost, let's stick to warranty. What type of warranty work has been done to my truck since I've owned it? I should probably clarify that part, because I bought the car used with 80,000 miles. So as far as 80,000 miles and back, I have the Carfax, and all I can really tell you, and this is going to sound really bad, is that oil changes every 10,000, tire rotations whenever this person felt like it, and other than that, the filters, and when I say filters, I mean engine and cabin air filters, were changed once in 80,000 miles. I know. And that's it. That's all that was done to this truck, 80,000 miles. Now, forget all that. Let's start from my ownership. Warranty. At 94,000 miles, we had the airbag recall performed, in which I'm sure you guys already know the passenger side airbag gets replaced. That big Takata recall, I'm sure you heard about it in the news. Also in the news was the fuel pump recall, which on my car, I did it at 124,000. So both these recalls were done free of charge. I don't know if I mentioned the airbag recall was done in 94. Mileage is really irrelevant. When you have a safety recall, take it to the dealer, it'll get covered. All right, now, as far as preventive maintenance, okay, these are items that I've replaced that you did not necessarily have to replace, but I've replaced them for obvious reasons. Some of you are familiar already with some of these items because you saw it on previous videos, but let's get right to it in order. So I replaced the rear shocks at 137,000 miles, not leaking, didn't fail, they weren't worn. Replace them basically because the top at, the one that moves up and down, was so rusted that it was starting to rub on the bottom part when it was bottoming out, and I could hear it on the inside of the car, so replaced it. Then I replaced the gas tank protective cover. That's the very bottom one. Again, didn't fail. I replaced it because to me, it just looked like it was too rusted. And I said, why not? Might as well do it. So 142,000 miles, I replaced that. And then, last but not least, at 153, just made a video recently about it, I replaced both front struts along with the upper bushings. And while I was in there, I replaced the front sway bar links and bushings. So that covers preventive maintenance. Now, the one that you guys are probably looking forward to listen to is actual part failures on my car. Well, ready? There's only been 2. Oh, I know. Some of you might be wondering, how's that even possible? Well, transfer case output shaft seal failed on me 115,000 miles. That was a small little leak, failure nonetheless. Like I've stated before, that is, you ready for this? A $10 part. And believe me, the leak was very minor. Other than that, this one might be a little shocking to some of you, but my driver's side front door speaker actually failed on me. And when I say failed, I could have got away with just toning down the bass, but I chose to not do that because if you can buy the part, why compromise, right? So for $100, a little less than that, my price, I replaced the front door speaker on the driver's side. And that covers the failures, my friends. That is it. In almost 160,000 miles, that's all that's actually failed. Those items that I stated before on preventive maintenance, they weren't leaking. They weren't worn. They were just rusted, if you think about it, which has a lot to do with the area where I live. Now, some of you might be very interested in this part, hopefully. Regular maintenance. You have to maintain your car. Some people do not believe in changing oil or changing filters. Well, I got news for you. If you want your car to reach 200, 300, 500,000 miles, you gotta maintain the car. It's like everything else. You have to maintain it. You want it to last, you gotta maintain it. So let's get right to it. Please, with this whole thing with the oil, guys, let's not get crazy, okay? I'm gonna tell you how I did it. I know everybody's gonna do it differently, blah, blah, blah. Let's not fight in the comment section. I change my oil every 5,000 miles. I know it's 0W20. It's synthetic. That's what I use. That's what you are using too. The manufacturer recommends every 10,000, but I change it at every 5. Now, follow me on this one. Hopefully it won't be confusing to some of you. I change the oil every 5,000, but I only change my oil filter every 10,000. So change the oil at 5, meaning drain it and refill oil only. And then when it reaches 10, I change the oil, but this time around I also change the oil filter. Why I do this? Well, as I'm sure you can tell, I drive a lot, so I'm trying to cut down on the costs a little. And I know that oil filter, when I do take it out at 10,000 miles, is still pretty good. So this is the way I do it. I'm sure a lot of you will say, you're wasting your money. Oil at 5,000 miles is still good. Well, I do it at 5. Tire rotation every 5,000. I rotate my tires every 5,000 miles. This one is actually, to some of you, I know it might be a little premature, but this is the way I do it. Again, I have a child, a married guy, you know, we all have other things to do. I do things in a certain fashion because I find them to be easier to remember later on. So my engine air filter and my cabin air filter, I change them once a year. But I changed it at a particular time. I changed it around May, sometimes June. Now, why do I do that? Is mostly because of the cabin air filter. Because what I want to do is I want to make sure that when the pollen season is over and done with, that I remove that stuff and you don't keep breathing it in through the vents. That's just me. Engine air filter, yes, it's a little premature because I'm averaging roughly about 25,000 miles a year. But honestly, it's how I remember. I do it that way. I do them both together. Done deal. Wipers, honestly, and I'm sure you guys can agree, check them and change them as needed. Honestly, I feel like every 2 years, you should probably change your wipers. I check mine literally almost every service. And when I see that it's starting to not clean the windshield properly, then I replace them. I align my vehicle once a year. You probably might not be able to. I have access to the equipment, so why not do it? I do it once a year. Transmission fluid. I replace mine every 40,000 miles. Sometimes a little sooner at 30,000. Why not change your transmission fluid when you can save your transmission and make it last a little longer? I believe in that. So preventive maintenance, and more preventive maintenance. I'm all about it. Power steering fluid, also every 40,000. I feel like I look at the color, it doesn't look that dark, so every 40,000, which is to me roughly every 2 years. Coolant, antifreeze. I literally am very close right there with the manufactured recommended intervals. So I changed mine for the first time. It was about 100,000 miles, and I changed it again 50,000 miles later. And that is what the manufacturer tells you to do. You should change your coolant the very first time at 100, and then it tells you every 50,000. And I think they're right on the money with that one because, yeah, I feel like the qualities after the fact seem to diminish a little sooner than doing, say, 100,000 and then 100,000 again. I feel like that's pushing it a little much. You should do it again at 150. Therefore, so brake fluid flush, which you should do. I see a lot of people, oh no, I don't need that. Yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. Believe me, because that boiling point does get lower and lower with time, with heat. And for me, again, I have access to the equipment, and it's easy for me to do. Every time I do my brakes, I flush my brake fluid. My brake fluid, for the most part, is always very clean. If I was to give you some piece of advice, try not to let it push more than 50,000 miles. That's just me. Front and rear differential fluids. This is a good one because some of you might disagree with me. I'm pretty sure of it. I do it every 40,000 miles. Gear oil is pretty resilient. It will last quite a while. Will it last more than 40,000 miles? Yeah, probably. But again, I have access to the fluids. I have a lift that I can use, so I do it every 40,000 miles. And the same goes for your transfer case. Do not forget the transfer case. Same deal. It uses gear oil, 40,000 miles. And while you're in there, guys, let's not go cheap. Buy the crush washers. It prevents you from possibly having a little leak on your drain plug. Cheap, easy. Why not do it? Let's do it right. Do it once and be done with it. Drive belt. Oh boy, drive belt. I'm sure a lot of people are going to disagree. They have their own opinions. 100,000. I replaced mine at 100,000. And just a little heads up, probably going to replace it again very soon. But that's mostly because I'm a YouTuber and I'm here making videos. And I am going to do a repair that the car doesn't need. But I know you guys will enjoy this do-it-yourself type video. And that is the water pump and thermostat and some pulleys. So do stay tuned. So drive belt, 100,000 miles. And I think for the most part, 200, 300, you know what I mean? Every 100,000 miles, your belt should be able to last 100,000 miles. Very important, very often neglected, but should be done more often than people think. Your drive shaft U-joints do have a grease fitting. So do yourself a favor, invest on a grease gun. Harbor Freight sells one for, I think it's 10 bucks. It might be 15, I'm not really sure. Get a grease gun, man. Grease your U-joint fittings with grease. Where am I going with this? Every 20,000 miles. Yeah, I do mine every 20,000 miles. Grease your U-joints on the drive shaft. Listen, the drive shafts are actually pretty expensive, but let's face it, I'm sure a lot of you know, you can actually just replace the U-joints. I'm sure when I cross that bridge, I'll make a video and you guys will know how to do it too. Problem with that is it does require lifts, you need a press, blah, blah, blah. But hey, if you can stretch your drive shaft a little longer, why not just lube the U-joints? There you go. Now, these are basically my particular case. It will be different with everybody else. Front brakes, which I'm sure you guys know with this car is a weak point. We cover that. I did mine, so okay, I don't have records of it, but I am pretty sure this person that owned my car before me did them at least once. I'm 100% sure of it. There's no way they would have been able to stress it at 80,000 miles. Because when I did get my car, the brakes were like fresh, and I got them at 80, but it was done with aftermarket pads. Where am I going with this? And it was poorly done. So 17,000 miles later, at 97,000 miles, I had to redo my brakes. And when I say that, I mean pads, I mean rotors and calipers. Did mine at 97,000. And then I redid them again recently at 144,000. So me personally, I've only done them twice. But as you can see here, roughly, you shouldn't expect more than 60,000 miles on your front brakes, and that's pushing it, because they're definitely a weak point on this car. Rear brakes, again, I'm pretty sure they were done once by the previous owner. I did them again at 121,000 miles, and I've checked them recently, and they're about 4 to 3 millimeters thickness on the pads. So it's getting, excuse me, it's getting there. We're approaching the time in which I'm going to be doing the second set of rear brakes. I did replace my rotors at 121,000. So this time around, I'm going to resurface the rotors and replace the pads only. Tires. My last set of tires lasted me 60,000 miles. I just recently replaced my tires. It must have been, I believe, 150,000 miles, something like that. As I'm sure you guys know, I'll be changing my wheels, so I'm gonna just go with a different set of tires because I want to sell these wheels that are currently on the car with the tires that are on it. But yeah, you should expect roughly, if you rotate your tires like I do and keep your alignments up, 60,000 miles on a set of tires. Sounds good to me. I really like that part. And last but not least, look at that. Painful, but we got through it. Some of you are probably saying, you forgot this one. Well, I did not. Because it is maintenance. You should never forget anything as far as maintenance. And that includes your spark plugs. That's right. Spark plugs, guys. You got to replace your spark plugs. So I stuck to the manufacturer interval, and I changed mine at 120,000 miles. These are iridium spark plugs. Honestly, I wish I had taken a picture or documented that. This was done before I started my YouTube thing. They were not worn. That's my point. At 120,000 miles, they were not worn. But I am not here telling you not to replace them and keep driving. 120,000 miles, I mean, listen, guys, that's That's a pretty long haul. So treat the car to some plugs, and at 120, replace them. And you do it again, you know, at 240, and so on. The good part is, you know that they're not going to be like trashed, because at least mine weren't. A lot of highway driving, mind you. But yeah, do replace your plugs. It's part of our tune-up per se. And now, last but not least, while you replace the plugs, replace your PCV valve. PCV valves are known to not fail on these cars, but that doesn't mean that they can't. There's two ways the PCV valve could fail on this one. Mine, again at 120, wasn't too far off, but it was a little clogged up. That's usually what happens with them. Or the spring could fail. It loses its tension, and you definitely don't want that. You want that pressure to be relieved when it's supposed to. And that's that, guys. That covers all of the maintenance I have done with this car. Now, if you were to ask me, was it expensive? Let me put it to you this way. In order to change the appearance on my truck as I'm approaching paying it off, and there's a lot of things I've been wanting to do to it since I bought it, I have spent more in the last 2 months in just appearance and looks per se than I have spent in maintenance in the last almost 5 years. If that doesn't say reliability, I don't know what does. And on that bombshell, guys, I hope you guys can share also some of your maintenance tips down below. And as always, I appreciate you guys watching. I appreciate all the support you guys have given me, and I will catch you on the next one.